Let me first thank you for this excellent opportunity strengthening and promoting our commonly shared values via this Article 17 meeting. President Karas, you have addressed us as partners. And during the last 2 hours, I have felt this even more than before. Partners we need to be. Partners in our diversity to send out a strong message against all the obstacles and dangers that have already been addressed during this session and that have been very strongly addressed by Mrs. van der Streek before. Many things I had prepared come very much in the same line. Okay? But, well, let me perhaps shortly introduce EULEMA to you, because we are a quite newly formed body, but with a long-standing and productive history. It reaches out to give Muslims in Europe a credible and reliable voice, and at the same time to strengthen the idea of compatibility of Muslim identity in Europe with supporting core values like democracy, rule of state, pluralism and human rights. Our activities are meant to foster inner Muslim discourse just as much as participating in various dialogue and networking activities, especially in interfaith dialogue, recently intensified through Muslim-Jewish activities with MJLC, Muslim Jewish Leadership Council. This year's EU elections take place in times of a rising feeling of insecurity. Numerous challenges like the climate change, economic crisis, ongoing wars, migration movements call for wise and sustainable decision-making. In such times of social disruption, populism is on the rise. Fears of large parts of societies to lose a certain standard of living attract many people to seemingly simple answers or conspiracy theories. Far-right authoritarian thinking is a threat to the very values Europe stands for. As Muslims in Europe, we express our great concern about such tendencies. Populism goes hand in hand with simplifications and the dangerous strategy to support a feeling of us in the seek of identity by creating a meant-to-be adversary other. And ever the more important it is to address these dangers by this conference. Out of a Muslim perspective, there are to be realized 3 keywords in forming an effective plan to attract and include Muslim citizens in Europe to engage themselves in the oncoming elections. First, to foster a feeling of belonging. Second, to open space for more positive visibility. And third, for more participation. As you are all aware of the increasing incidence of Islamophobic rhetoric and anti-Muslim attitudes, I won't go into further details. Let me just underline that Islamophobia has entered mainstream discourse. It's not a phenomenon of the far right-wing parties alone. I don't want to present our Muslim cause as a case where we depict ourselves as victims. It's the very spirit of EULEMA to be proactive and open to multi-perspective thinking. We are aware about the complexity of the situation. And let me be frank, there is this sad and deeply disturbing incidents that fill headlines where social problems that exist are seen as rooted in the Islamic background. and we have things to deal with. And even more, there is this problematic connection between the ideology and propaganda of those who misuse religion to feed their extremist and anti-democratic mindset, ending sometimes in brutal and inhuman violence and even terrorism. We have to be aware of that. And as Muslim scholars, we try to take up our responsibility. We try to enforce our efforts to counter such attempts of hijacking Islamic sources. We create awareness for the very essence of the peaceful and pro-diversity teachings of Islam by the force of our Islamic teaching, the education issue that has been addressed before. And taking in mind that Islam is very dynamic and flexible. Our Prophet Muhammad has set an example that due to changing of time, place, and society, questions of religious practice change. New answers based on the authentic text and their deeper meaning must be found. And there has been done a lot of work in this context, and I'm proud that my home country, Austria, has seen 3 Imam conferences, 2003, 2006, 2010. And then we have this positive example of a common word, the open letter of 2007, and the heads of our board, Imam Yahya Pallavicini and Mufti Nejat Grabus, have taken an important role in this. And at the same time, we have learned to differentiate where a religious argumentation may be supportive and where the underlying problem is more of a social issue. The competences of imams, male and women scholars, teachers and ministers must be extended in this light. EULEMA is attentive to this need. As glad that we are that Europe provides specialized institutions to guarantee fundamental rights such as religious freedom, their positive work should be put more into the limelight and connected with general policies due to its intersectional character. Meanness, envy, and hatred polarize our societies and poison each ability of enlightened thinking. Growing religious illiteracy makes this worse. The general quality of public discourse is endangered by an atmosphere where bullying others wins over a solid argumentation. In the end, this is an attack on the vision of Europe as such. As a woman, let me illustrate this danger with an example. The rise of right-wing parties includes a backlash in understanding the importance of women's rights. There isn't to be taken a blind eye on how traditional role models endanger what has been gained in gender justice during the 70s. It is deeply disturbing to watch how this is tried to be covered up by an aggressive anti-Muslim propaganda, as if women in the West were totally freed, mission accomplished, while Islam stood in opposition to gender justice. Furthermore, I'm glad that we have a good interreligious dialogue and interfeminist dialogue as well. Belonging, visibility, and participation. These are the 3 promising approaches. And to put it very clear, as you ask how to keep out foreign interests, make Muslims in Europe your partners, creating counter-narratives against the victimization of Muslims. Muslims in Europe can build bridges between countries of origin and their new homes. And not to forget, many Muslims are originally Europeans. We have European Islam for centuries. If they enjoy a feeling of belonging to Europe, they will be natural advocates for European visions. And how to attract Muslims to take part in the elections? Include Muslims. Show European diversity in a positive light with examples of integration by participation. Visibility and participation highlight best practice how Muslims who came during the recent migration movements get inspired by Muslims of third or fourth generation who are a vital part of society and feed in the common well-being. And trust, please trust in the ability of voters to be confronted with the complexity of the migration issue. Honesty is sought, especially in times of black and white populist propaganda. As an institution whose goal it is to foster the compatibility of an identity as Muslim and European, EULEMA is keen on spreading such valuable efforts and encourage Muslims to take part in the elections. Let's make sure European values won't get perverted by any kind of extremist, authoritarian and anti-democratic politics. Our future may depend on taking all efforts to stand up for true democracy and guarantee the continuance of the European success story, united in diversity. Thank you.